One topic of conversation in Washington, D.C. right now is who's going to be the president in 2028. I know, it seems crazy to start talking about it this soon, but like it or not, Donald Trump is a second-term lame duck president. He is not running. So who will be the Republican nominee? His running mate, his vice president, your vice president, JD Vance. Last night, I think he started talking like a candidate. And it was some pretty good stuff. He was at this fundraiser for a think tank, a right-leaning think tank, and in fact, American Compass, it's called. See the compass back there? Strangely, this was actually started by some old Romney types that really focus on economic principles and ideas for conservatives. And unlike a lot of the Romney types in Washington, D.C., and some of the think tanks, they didn't lose their minds when Donald Trump became president. I mean, I wouldn't call them MAGA, but they're certainly open to the Donald Trump presidency. And I think that's important for JD Vance to be able to go into that room, be himself, and lay the groundwork for his 2028 presidential campaign. And well, let's watch it together. And you tell me if he's talking like a candidate.
There are politicians out there who they've just been politicians. But you are someone who was an intellectual first. Some people don't like the word intellectual, but I mean it in the good sense of the term. You were writing for National Review. You were at the bar late at night arguing about and helping shape these ideas that you are now.
I come here for free and you insult me and you call me an intellectual.
Remind
me that I wrote for National Review. What an asshole this guy is.
That's fair. I will admit that I too wrote for National Review.
That's actually very funny. As a conservative Republican in Washington, D.C., that right there is the Trump influence on J.D. Vance, and he's able to play the Trump amiability, joking, working the crowd kind of thing, even with a little profanity, in a way that other politicians aren't able to casually and easily do. But then he started addressing some very specific and important issues. Let's start with higher education. If you watch some of the cable news outlets right now, or broadcast news, or read the Washington Post and New York Times, you're told that the Trump administration is anti-intellectual and that they've got a war on higher education because they just want the American people to be stupid. And the stupider they are, the more they'll vote for the Republicans. It's insulting. It's disgusting. It's all they've got, really. They want to ignore the fact that the problem with Harvard and Yale and some of the Ivy Leagues is that they seem to be pretty anti-Semitic right now. They seem to be okay with violence against Jews, but they don't want to address that. So instead, they slander Trump and you for being anti-intellectual. Well, no one's going to call J.D. Vance anti-intellectual. So how does he address the problem at Harvard? Well, watch this and take close attention to how he talks, again, in terms of being a candidate or even being a person who eventually could be president.
The voting in the 2024 election of Harvard University's faculty was, okay? My guess is that at least 90% and probably 95% of them voted for Kamala Harris, right? Very brilliant Kamala Harris, of course. But, you know, if you ask yourself, a foreign election, a foreign country's election, you say 80% of the people voted for one candidate, you would say, oh, that's kind of weird, right? That's like not a super healthy democracy. If you said, oh, 95% of people voted for one party's candidate, you would say that's North Korea, right? That's totalitarian. That is impossible in a true place of free exchange for that to happen. And so I think the ideological diversity of these universities has to get much better. And I think that if that got better, if you actually had a place where people were open to debating these things and weren't terrified they were going to lose their job for saying something that was a little bit outside the Overton window, then I think the science would get better, the reproducibility would get better, the quality of the institution would be so much better. And that's what I want, because we need high quality universities. Right now, the problem is we don't have them.
All right. Now, he expands on this idea in a second, but I want to pause it because Again, he just communicated something that is so common sense and so understandable to 90% of the American people, if not 100%, that if you've got an institution that is supposed to be representative of our country in the corridors of higher education, and you find out that over 80% of them all voted the same way, that's North Korea stuff. That's Putin's Russia kind of thing, and you know that there's something wrong. And I think that that's an important, valid point to make. But then he brings it home about why this fight over Harvard is so important. Again, pay attention to how he discusses this issue from his first-person perspective.
What the 4-year plus university, one of the most important things that it does, obviously it trains hopefully very smart people, but it produces really the ground level of the innovation that the economy is going to run on for the next 10 or 15, 20 years. Okay, so if I want people in Indiana to be manufacturing the next generation pharmaceuticals, those pharmaceuticals have to get developed in the first place. And for them to get developed in the first place, I need places like Harvard to be doing really groundbreaking biomedical research. What I don't need out of Harvard is for the science to be so broken that 80% of the biology papers produced don't actually replicate. And that reproducibility crisis is one of the main reasons why I think universities are broken. What I really don't need to happen is I can't let Harvard have such an explicitly racist and in violation of the Civil Rights Act approach to how it funds and trains scientists that the best and the brightest are being cut out of that process altogether. So these things are very much connected. But I mean, look, I am not anti-university. I'm not anti-Harvard. What I am is a person who recognizes what should be obvious to every single person at every elite university in the country, which is the model is broken, it doesn't work, and they're violating the social contract they have with the people of the country. And the people are now saying, we need you to change. And these institutions are really going to be confronted, and thanks to President Trump, have already been confronted with a choice. You can accept democratic accountability and you can reform, or you can accept that the government is not going to treat you kindly, we're not going to fund your garbage, and we're not going to support you unless you do the job the American people need you to do.
That's really strong stuff, really well spoken, really well delivered. And again, as a Republican who my entire adult life has had to suffer through candidates and elected officials who carry my party's label, sort of mangle their way through events like this and have real challenges articulating big ideas. It's refreshing to see. Now, listen, I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not endorsing a candidate. I'm not saying anything like that. There's way too much game to be played between now and the first debate, let alone the first primary or caucus for 2028. I'm only telling you that you see this man in this setting and you hear the way he talks, right? Like, if I need a pharmaceutical company in Indiana, I need the best scientists and the best research coming out of Harvard. This is a guy who is talking like a candidate for president. This is a guy who has already envisioned what it would be like for him to sit in the Oval Office. He's there already. The whole purpose of this segment is to let you know it's game on right now for 2028, and JD Vance has the inside track here. Not only obviously because he was Trump's running mate and he's the current sitting vice president, but you may not have noticed this, but last week, Donald Trump, as the de facto head of the Republican Party, placed JD Vance in charge of the RNC's of fundraising apparatus for the 2026 midterms. You know what that means? That means he's responsible for raising money for the members of the House and the members of the Senate who are either up for re-election or are trying to win a new seat in the midterms. He's going to be campaigning. He's going to be raising money. He's going to be doing chicken dinners for $1,000 a plate for all of those candidates. And if those candidates win, well, they become top of the list requests for endorsement when it comes time for the primaries in 2028. This man is going to be out there making all of those connections for the nomination in 28. He's got the inside track bigly right now. I also want to show you one more part of last night's presentation where it almost sounds like he's already coalescing a message and platform for 28, and it's so simple and I think pretty effective. Take a look.
I just want normal people who work hard and play by the rules to have a good life. And I think that was very, very possible in the United States of America that I was growing up in, but you started to see some signs that it was fraying. And I think it got a lot worse over the course of the 90s and 2000s. And that has got to change. And I think that's fundamentally why Donald Trump is the president of the United States, is because he was the first mainstream American politician to come along and say, this isn't working. These trade deals are not working for the normal people who power our economy. Our policies have not been productive either in the economic, national security, or diplomatic space. So it's complicated. The answer to the question is complicated. Summarizing it is necessarily very hard. But I think the best way to summarize it is we just want normal people to have a good life.
I mean, I want normal people who work hard and play by the rules to have a good life. Thank you. No need to complicate it any more than that. Because the fact of the matter is, if you look at the opposing political party in this country right now and what they have stood for and what they have advocated for and what the hills that they are willing to die on politically, it runs contrary to that very simple message. Look at your leading prominent Democrat politician right now. Take Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, since they were the two most prominent the last time around. Do you think they can say the same thing? I just want normal people who work hard and play by the rules to have a good life. And the fact is, no, they can't. Again, before you think that I'm drinking JD Vance Kool-Aid, he wasn't the only potential prospect in 2028. Yesterday at this same event, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was also there, although not in black tie. I wonder if he missed a memo. I'm not sure what's going on there. It's weird. And he actually had a pretty great takeaway line here that should be shared with you, because a lot of people, myself included, were somewhat wary of Marco Rubio being Secretary of State. I mea culpa. I eat my words. I think he's been phenomenal so far, absolutely brilliant. And I can't imagine anyone else being as strong as Secretary of State for Donald Trump as he has been. But he even acknowledges it a bit in this remark. Take a look.
We really only got to serve together for like 10 days, because I got confirmed pretty quickly. And by the way, the president was I got 99 out of 100 votes because the vice president at the time had seated up and filled. And the president, for some period of time, expressed great concern about the fact that I had 99 votes in the Senate. He didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But I told him recently, sir, you don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't think I'd get 99 votes now. And anyways.
That's actually a pretty good line. And you can totally see Trump being sort of wary. It's like, wait, hold on. You got 99 votes in the Senate for your confirmation? I've done something wrong. What's wrong? They don't agree on anything. And Rubio is absolutely correct. There's no way he could get that kind of support right now from the Senate, because he's actually doing a really good job. And, well, that's the sort of thing that Democrats can't abide by in that chamber. Listen, again, not jumping on board with any of these candidates. I want to promise you something as we move toward 2028. I know it seems weird, but it is kind of right around the corner. There's going to be a lot of intrigue about who the candidates are going to be and what those primaries are going to look like. I'm never going to tell you who to vote for. I'm never going to tell you who I'm endorsing or who I'm voting for. I think that compromises me, frankly, as somebody who delivers truthful, fact-based information to you on a regular basis and then gives you my opinion and my analysis about who's doing well and who isn't. And I would never be so arrogant and have so much hubris to think that my recommendation on who you should vote for would carry any kind of weight. The fact of the matter is, I'm much more interested in who you want to vote for than I am in telling you who I'm going to vote for. And it's going to be fascinating to watch on both sides of the political aisle. But based on what I saw last night at this event in Washington, D.C., about who was there, about what was said, and about who the audience was in terms of building coalitions for the nomination, as of now, those two rock stars, JD Vance and Marco Rubio, they're in the lead, such as it is.